Welcome back to Luke's Properties YouTube channel. In this video, I want to talk to you about the two different parts of your brain and how by using one part of your brain, you're keeping yourself in a box, stuck, doing the same things over and over again and never moving forward because you're only using a particular part of your mind. But once you unlock this second part of your mind, doors start opening for you, opportunities start coming your way, and you really start to progress and move forward in the journey of entrepreneurship, but also for life too. Now, I understood this to a certain extent many years ago, as I've been living through this journey myself. Over the last 8 years, I've built 2 successful businesses, I've bought a portfolio of buy-to-let properties, and I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. But if I can take you back to when I first started 8 years ago, I only had around £6,000 in savings. I put that into my first business and turned that into a 6-figure business. And once I learned how to do that, 4 years later, I started my second business, a lot wiser, a lot smarter, and the second time round was a lot easier than the first time round because I had learned many lessons along the way. But when I look back at how I think now versus how I thought 8-9 years ago, there's a big difference. And that's what I want to talk about today, because if you're watching this, chances are you're just getting started, or you want to get started. You want to start your first business. You want to become an entrepreneur. So I want to share with you the differences in thinking and how I managed to transcend my original thought process, which was keeping me in a box, and start thinking in a completely different way, which allowed me to reach the next level and grow as a person, as an entrepreneur, which in turn has helped me make a lot more money. So the part of your brain that keeps you in a box, stuck, doing the same thing over and over again, that I'm referring to is called the reptilian brain. I first read about this in March, April of this year. I was reading a book written by an author called Daniel Priestley. And as I was reading this book in Barbados on the beach, it really hit home. And I found it quite profound because I was aware that I was thinking in a completely different way to how I thought 8-9 years ago when I first started my business. But I could never articulate it as well as Daniel did in this book. So I'm going to read you a quick summary of this particular chapter, and then I'm going to talk to you about how this thought process has changed my life and how hopefully it can change yours too. So the reptilian brain, often referred to as the reptile brain, represents our most basic instincts: survival, aggression, and fear. It drives responses like fight or flight, focusing on immediate survival and avoiding threats. This part of the brain can lead to risk-averse behaviors and a lack of innovation because it prioritizes safety over opportunity. In contrast, the entrepreneurial brain is characterized by creativity, curiosity, and a willingness to take risks. This mindset embraces opportunities, seeks growth, and is driven by vision and purpose. People with an entrepreneurial brain are more likely to think outside of the box, leverage resources creatively, and adapt to changes. Now, for most of my life, and I'm sure for many of you watching this too, I was guilty of thinking with my reptile brain. The problem with thinking with your reptile brain is you're in survival mode and your thoughts become your behaviors. So if you're always in survival mode, then your thoughts and your behaviors and your decisions are always going to be made from a place of fear. And if you want to start your own business, which is definitely going off of the beaten track, the path that everyone else chooses, which is normally working a job, then you have to embrace fear. And there's going to be times where you feel scared, you feel unprepared, and it all feels quite risky. And if you're thinking with your reptile brain, then you'll never start that business. You'll stay where you are, you'll keep doing the 9 to 5 because that feels safer, and you'll never make a decision to start your own thing, which could ultimately make you a lot happier and a lot wealthier. Now, when I first started my business, I had around £6,000 in savings, and I used to fight with my reptile brain all the time, thinking, I need to hold on to this money. This is all the money that I have in the world. What if I lose this money? What if I put it into a business and it doesn't work? What will I do then? But I managed to overcome my reptile brain and started thinking as an entrepreneur with a growth mindset. I decided to lean into the risk rather than being scared of it, and I turned that £6,000 into a 6-figure business. Another example of how using my reptile brain could have held me back would have been when I started buying properties. When I started buying properties back in 2020, everyone was saying the property market's going to crash. You shouldn't buy properties, they're all going to be worth nothing, the housing market is going to crash, the prices are going to drop, buying property is a bad investment. These are all the things I was hearing from relatives, from peers, from the media, And had I been thinking with my reptile brain at the time, then I would have made a decision based on fear. The risk of investing large amounts of capital into housing would have felt too dangerous, and I probably would have tried to protect that money by leaving it in the bank where it's actually losing value due to inflation, and I would never have speculated to accumulate and invested that money. Now, since I invested in that first house, for example, that house has gone up by £40,000. That house also pays me between £6,000 to £8,000 a year in net income. So that's after the mortgage, after the expenses. And a couple years ago, I refinanced that house and withdrew around £30,000 of equity, which I then used to buy another house. So by making that decision with my entrepreneurial brain back in 2020 to invest £30,000 into that first house, that £30,000 doubled. I then withdrew some of that to buy another house. I still have my initial investment in the first house, and that house is going to pay me between £6,000 to £8,000 every single year for the rest of my life. So that's another example of when thinking with your entrepreneurial brain rather than your reptile brain allows you to move forward and grow and take risks and ultimately make more money. Now, for some of you watching this, you might think starting your own business is risky. You might think hiring a mentor or joining a program is risky. You might think you're going to lose money by doing so. And I want you to know that you're thinking with your reptile brain. And what I challenge you to do is start thinking as an entrepreneur, because by thinking with the entrepreneur mind, you can open doors for yourself. You can seize opportunities. You can take more calculated risks, and you can really grow, evolve, and achieve more in this world by not thinking like a reptile, stuck in survival mode, and by thinking more like an entrepreneur and taking risks. The importance of developing an entrepreneurial mindset to overcome the limitations of the reptile brain. By recognizing and nurturing this entrepreneurial approach, individuals can unlock their potential, innovate, and drive successful ventures. So this has been one of my learnings over the last 8 years. It's one of many mindset shifts that I've had to practice, and hopefully if you're watching this video and you're stuck thinking with your reptile brain, then after watching this you can start challenging yourself to start thinking as an entrepreneur. If you make decisions based on fear, the chances are you're not going to grow. Whereas if you make decisions based on curiosity, creativity, and opportunity, then you're going to grow and ultimately become more successful and make more money. I hope you get some value from this video, guys. If you want someone to help you start or scale your rent-to-rent business, then I'll put a link in the video description below. Click the link and you'll be able to book in a free call with myself. On that call, we'll work out if we're a good fit for each other and if I'd be a good mentor for you. If not, then keep watching my videos, keep learning from the channel, and I'm sure you'll get some success. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.